Welcome to the Scout Home Podcast. Back here with even not having all of the spring sports still in season. We've had at least a couple that are obviously done for the year, but plenty to talk about from the end season, plenty to talk about from the off season as well. Some big picture news, an exciting transfer to a Cougar program that Bobby and I are already very excited about here. Early May, I think last weekend, we may have talked about this last year, but I feel like the past weekend, one of the most underrated sports weekends. You got Kentucky Derby, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and I haven't checked the standings in a little bit, Bobby, but I presume you're skipping a Dallas Stars game tonight to make recording, and I know I appreciate it. I know the listeners appreciate it, and my team was playing last night, so I assume yours is as well. Any of that? How are we doing, buddy? Can we get a Stars update? I was so magnanimous by text. You had to know it was coming. You had to know it was coming.
You can do this podcast by yourself this week. Why don't you go ahead and do it by yourself this week? No. In all seriousness, it is the worst playoff format of any playoff format in professional sports. Okay, just real quick, if you don't know the NHL, the first round, it's played by division. So the top three teams in a division are in the playoffs. Then there's a wild card, right? And so the number one team plays the wild card team, and then 2 and 3 play each other. Sam, if this was set up like any, normal playoff structure, the Stars would have been the 2 seed in the West, and they played what would have been the 3 seed in the West. Your Vegas Golden Knights got to play a wild card team, and they were 4th in the conference. 4th in the conference. They were the 4th best team in the conference, and they get to play a wild card team. So yeah, things looking good for the NHL there.
My heart bleeds for you and all of the I would say assume non-zero number of Dallas Stars fans who now hate me a little bit more. Listen to this pod, but plenty of Cougar stuff to talk about. Plenty of Cougar stuff going on over at patreon.com/SH podcast. Not too long. Bobby and I will be dropping a long-awaited off-season men's basketball episode now that we kind of have a good idea of what the coming season roster looks like and all of that jazz. If any of that sounds good to you, if the thought simply of supporting the internet's longest-running independent Houston Cougar podcast sounds good to you, please, please, please head on over to patreon.com/SH podcast. We'll kick off our sports talk tonight as we always try to have the postseason teams lead the sports discussion, which we're going to do here in a special NCAA tournament preview edition of Cougar Golf Corner.
So we are headed to the Simpsonville Regional, which is hosted. It's a city outside of Louisville. So the Cougs are headed to Louisville. Kind of a bit of a homecoming for Coach Lasprilla. That is where she graduated high school from, that kind of the Louisville area. So really excited that she gets to kind of go home. I expect to see quite a few people in some red out there supporting Coach Lasprilla and the Cougs. So before I dive into like a preview of how I think it's going to go for the Cougs or anything like that, let's just go over how the postseason works for NCAA golf. So there are 6 regionals total. There was one in Waco. That was the one I was kind of hoping that the Cougs would go to so I could get down there, go see my parents, do all that kind of stuff. There's one, I want to say, in Tallahassee. They bid out these regionals. So just because someone is hosting does not mean that they are the best team, the number one team. It's not like baseball in that sense, because you kind of have to reserve these private golf clubs months, weeks in advance, and so they want to make sure that's the case. But like I said, the Cougs are playing in the Simpsonville Regional. each regional will have a group of teams of, I want to say it's about 15 teams. Um, somewhere in that range. It varies a little bit. And to be honest, I'm kind of forgetting off the top of my head. I'd have to go through and count, but it's roughly 16 teams, something like that in each regional. Um, but each regional has all those teams. The top 5 teams advance in the regional. They advance to the national championship. You head to that national championship tournament in Carlsbad, which, if you don't know where Carlsbad is, it's right outside San Diego. It's beautiful. All of your major golf club manufacturers are actually located in Carlsbad. So TaylorMade's, Kingdom, Callaway's, Eli Callaway Performance Center is all out there. Ping's in Arizona, but you have all your majors are going to really kind of be out there. So it's always going to have good weather. That's usually why they hold it there. But the Lady Cougs have never made the national championship tournament. They've never advanced past regionals. Last year they entered the regional as the 5 seed. So you're thinking, hey, that's a really good chance for us to advance there. You do all that. Ended up finishing 6th. This year, the Cougs head to the Simpsonville Regional as the 5 seed again. And I'd argue the Cougs should probably be a little bit better than a 5 seed, especially after the tournaments they've really kind of played in, and they looked great in the Big 12 championship. You look at some of the other teams that are seated ahead of them, but it really is kind of hard to argue because the NCAA essentially just seeds you by the spike mark rankings, which is the website where you go to track tournaments and do all that. And the spike mark rankings aren't subjective at all. It's really based on performance. So think of something to equate it to another sport with something that you've probably heard of, Ken Pom. It's a lot like Ken Pom in the sense that, like, it's not just based on wins and losses. That certainly helps, but it's based off how do you perform against the teams and how do they perform against other teams. So it's really, whereas Ken Pom is more of a projective measure, this does not necessarily project. It just goes back and looks, okay, you did well against this team who went and won this tournament. You beat them by 10. So it really does that kind of thing. So it's really kind of hard to argue. Does that make enough sense, Sam? Do you kind of, you get where we're at with that?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so just heading into the regional, I will kind of tell you just the rankings of the teams that you will be playing, because frankly, I'm going to be honest with you guys, you probably don't know that Arkansas is the number 1 seed, and I could tell you all that, but at the end of the day, it's golf, and it doesn't really matter where who the rankings fall with. You just want to be one of the top 5 who finish. But in your region, you have number 6, you have number 7, you have number 18, you have number 19, you have the Cougs at number 30. Excuse me. You have number 37, number 40, number 45, number 55, number 72, 102, and 192. So what that tells me is, one, you are positioned with the worst number 1 seed. So with that, just like you can imagine the NCAA basketball tournament, you're going to get the number 1, 2 seed, which is a tough break, right? You almost would rather have number 2 and like number 11, right? Just because you got a better chance to move up versus number 11. So it's a little tough that you got the top. Yes, you have the worst 1, but you do have the top 2.
I mean, I guess the good news is it's not match play, so it's like it's more of, yes, you are competing with that number 1, that top 2 seed for obviously a finite number of team spots to advance, but at least it's not like, oh, you've got to go through whoever the 1 seed is, like in this regional to advance, you know?
Yeah, it's not like you're the 5 seed and you're looking at the 1 going, oh no.
Like you're all playing the same course, though you do have to play the course alongside.
Yeah. Oh, I have to beat Duke to get to the national championship. It's like, no, you can actually not beat Arkansas and still have a chance to play in another tournament where Arkansas will be there, and you got another chance at them. So, those are kind of the rankings, and when you just kind of look at it, what does worry me a little bit is you do have number 37, and that's kind of who you're competing. Last year, you were jumped by a team kind of in that range, that 6 seed. UNLV was actually the team. They were the ones that jumped you. And so at least you're not playing like number 31 or something crazy like that. But yeah, it's you're gonna have to go play good golf, no matter who's there, right? Well, I can sit here and tell you that, like, oh man, it sure would be easier if we had the number 42 6 seed, or the number 30 whatever 6 seed, but like that's not that's not how it works. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to beat them anyway. So um for me, it comes down to a couple of things. At the Big 12 tournament, I kind of said, if the Cougs, I don't know if you remember this, Sam, and I got to kind of pat myself on the back here, allow it, it's going to happen. I said, if the Cougs are going to, if the Cougs are going to perform and do well in this tournament, they're going to need one hell of a performance from Natalie St. Germain. And hey, Sam, we got a really good performance from Natalie St. Germain in that regional. In fact, she was leading through 2 days. I mentioned in the last episode there was an injury that kind of affected her on day 3, and you saw her kind of fall off a little bit. But Malin Kim stepped up and did what you needed her to do. Maybe pressed a little bit those last 2 or 3 holes because you were just kind of running out of time. So if you can get another really good performance from Natalie St. Germain, if she gives you even something close to what she gave you at the Big 12 championship, not only do you have a chance at winning this regional, you have a chance at a really, really good chance at advancing out of this regional for the first time ever. This feels like the year Coach Lasparia has kind of been building towards. You have arguably the best player that's come under Coach Lasparia in Moa Savinescold. As a senior, you have her here. Malin Kim is an underclassman, but you just kind of have seen her develop and take that next step. You kind of saw that this summer when she was participating, this past summer, when you saw her participating in some amateur events, some big amateur events, and winning those. You saw Moa advance past match play and things like that. So you're really hoping that those 3 kind of carry you through it. If you can get good performances from Malin Kim, Moa Savinescold, if you can get what you expect out of those 2, and then you get another really good performance. I'm not saying Natalie St. Germain has to do what she did versus or what she did in the Big 12 tournament. I don't expect her to lead necessarily, right? But if you can get a top 15 performance out of Natalie St. Germain, the team's probably going to be playing in Carlsbad for the first time ever. So you got your fingers crossed. You're really hoping for that. You do, like I said, have the easiest number 1 seed. You've played them this year. You lost by 1 to them in a tournament this season. It was actually the one in Houston, I believe. And that was like a top flight tournament. That tournament was ridiculous this year. And you lost by 1 to a 1 seed, right? You look at some of the other teams that you've played in your regional. You have Iowa State. Iowa State, you lost by 8 in Houston, and then you lost by 26 at a tournament in Arizona, arguably probably the Cougs' worst tournament of the year, maybe besides Vegas, the one you were at, unfortunately. And then obviously you lost by 5 to them in the Big 12 championship, but you were leading them, right? BYU is in your region, and you beat them in Mexico by 15. You beat them in Vegas by 41. Kansas State, you lost to them in a tournament at Arizona by 6. But overall, you haven't played a lot of the teams in this tournament. But something kind of interesting, just another name to kind of look out for if you do tune in and you're going, all right, I'm following the Cougs. Is there anybody else I should kind of pay attention to? And you have the number 1 player for Arkansas is the defending Augusta Women's National champion. So they do a tournament in Augusta the week before the Masters, and the women's amateurs go there. And she won that. She's also the defending NCAA champion. So she won the NCAA tournament last year, which is really interesting because it is a match play tournament once you get to California and you make it to the finals. So she was able to stare down some really big competition. She's shown she can do it in 18-hole play and tournament play. And you'll want to pay attention to how she does. And the Cougs have actually played her. Her name's Maria Jose Marine. And the Cougs played her in Houston, and Malin Kim and Melissa Vinascold beat her. Not to say that she's not good, right? To do what she's done, you have to be really good. But the Cougs have faced her. The Cougs have competed against her, and your top two players have beat her. So I think you have a really good chance at advancing to the national championship this year.
Yeah, I think you covered this pretty well, but in the broadest terms, it seems to kind of line up for the Cougs here that obviously not all of your core players are seniors, but you do have like Mo as a senior,
Natalie St. Germain.
Germain's a senior, Alexa lower in the order, but still definitely a regular part of your starting lineup. Alexa's a senior. Even Malin will be back next year, but second to last probably NCAA postseason that she's gonna be playing in, and obviously her last chance to potentially play as a teammate of these senior teammates who she's been with here the last few years. So without jinxing them, it really does feel like this is finally the team that takes that step forward. This is the team that has the capability to do what previous Cougar women's golf teams. And granted, it is still incredible. Like this program, for all intents and purposes, has been around pretty much about the same time that we've had this podcast, which is to say, over a decade, so longer than some things in this life, but in the life of a sports team, very, very young program. So I think we don't take it for granted that Cougar women's golf, previously under Garrett Chadwell, now under Lydia Laspria, regular NCAA postseason level team with standout individuals who have advanced further previously. But yeah, we'd really love to see this be the year that kind of metaphorical door gets kicked down and Coach Laspria and the ladies going to Carlsbad here. And then we have a first ever, I'm manifesting a first ever Cougar Golf Corner to preview a team appearance in the NCAA championship for you.
Yeah, flights weren't so expensive to Carlsbad, California, and hotels weren't so expensive. It feels like something that I'm probably not going to do, but I'll at least go to flights.google.com and just kind of see, like, is Frontier running a cheap flight out there that maybe I can get last minute? What do my hotel point situation look like? Like, maybe I go out there for the final day, or
yeah, I mean, maybe you could get a rental and just or get a rental car and then stay in the shitty, which I would say is East County. No offense to the lovely hamlets of Poway and Santee, but somewhere out in East County probably, which is not especially close to Carlsbad, but you correctly have identified that. I mean, all of San Diego, it's a nice place, so not going to be cheap to stay there, but Carlsbad, Oceanside, all that area, not actually cheap to stay because it's gorgeous.
Yeah, as just kind of behind the scenes here, I have absolutely interviewed for a job with one of the major golf manufacturers, and they flew me out to Carlsbad. And when I landed and I'm driving from San Diego to Carlsbad, I'm like, oh, that's why it's so expensive to live here. Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, I have someone reasonably well. I have a good friend, fellow U of H alum who's lived in the San Diego area now for the better part of 12 or 13 years and lives actually on the north side of town, not in Carlsbad but around Carlsbad. And I'm just like, I hope you appreciate that you live in fucking paradise, man. Anyway,
it's incredible.
Back to the Cougar stuff. Our next topic here, we're going to boldly go somewhere we don't go super often on this show, but a place I would say this week where the relevant U of H news takes us. And this is a story, Bobby, that I've gotten a lot more interested in it than I was when I first started seeing the headlines for it. And this is, to be specific, about the Big 12 private equity deal that's kind of come out as a story here in the past few months, and U of H's role in the story, which we got some prominent news on that this week. Prominent, I would say, positive news, not to steal your thunder here, Bobby. We're gonna go full business guy. Too often when I introduce topics, I get into the meat of the story before I give you really a chance to speak on it. Now, I have a good idea of what this deal does and doesn't entail between the Big 12 and RedCoog Capital, but probably at least a few listeners who are at most vaguely familiar or maybe even not at all familiar with the Big 12's private equity deal, U of H's involvement in it. Bobby, give us the important details about this and what's been U of H's role in this story and any thoughts you have related to this.
Yeah, so There is a two companies called Redbird Capital Partners and Weatherford Capital, which I don't know if you know this, Sam, but Weatherford Capital is headed up by a former college football quarterback, um, who his name I can't remember now, but
Drew
that
Weatherford.
yes,
Were
Drew
you trying to
Weatherford.
be funny there, or did you
No,
genuinely
no,
not
no,
remember him?
no. I
Okay,
genuinely
sorry.
forgot. Yeah, it's headed up by Drew Weatherford. It's a pretty simple deal. A lot of times when people hear private equity, you kind of freak out a little bit. But this calls for a 0% ownership in the conference or the schools. A little bit different than, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, the Big Ten private equity deal that kind of happened. But the conference gets $12.5 million, so a capital infusion of $12.5 million there for the conference. And then where I think it differs from a lot of private equity things that you see is the individual member schools have the option to access a line of credit for $30 million each. And the teams can opt in or not opt into that. So you can say, no, we don't want that money, or yes, we do want that money. And basically you'd have to repayment. So more than an equity deal where they buy in, it's definitely more of a loan to you. There are no ideas of how much you have to pay back. Obviously, the 30 mil and what's the interest. Um, Kind of the rumor out there is a double digit interest rate.
That's
So
what I
if you
saw as
take
well.
all,
Yeah,
so if you take 30, I'm hearing somewhere near 10, could be higher. You got to pay 33 back is my math. I didn't go to the Bauer College. I was a stupid liberal arts guy. I was a class guy. But hey man, I stepped foot in Bauer. I had to do a couple of classes in the Bauer College. So
you may have
but
perused the second story Melcher Hall Starbucks once or twice.
yeah, yeah, I definitely saw the revolving ticker that was in the that they love to use for all their marketing
Oh
materials
yeah,
when
God,
when
yeah,
they market Bauer. It's everywhere, right? Even like the
everywhere.
flyer for Bauer, not to like go off this tangent.
No, yeah,
You can't see anything from the college except for like that ticker that goes around. Anyways,
yeah.
so one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is Redbird is a pretty major shareholder in the new Paramount Global. So as the TV deal kind of comes out, it really kind of feels like Redbird strong armed themselves with the conference a little bit. Like, hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You sign with us, we can go to CBS and TNT and all those guys and get you a killer TV deal. So I think that's kind of where it comes from for the Big 12 office. But overall, um, just to kind of go to the secondary headline there, the schools could opt in. They could not take it. They could take it. It was kind of up to them. And when I first heard about it, it was on. I mean, I first heard a story about it. And then I heard a podcast talking about it. They said that they thought maybe 2 to 5 schools would take it, and the others wouldn't. And I honestly and candidly thought U of H might be one of those 2 to 5 schools. We're always looking for money. Our basketball coach called us poor like 3 months ago, which we could talk about that and all if we really are that poor or what he was trying to do. I do think Samson was just trying to be like, hey, there's a guy that I want. And he's asking for more money. Um, hey, donors, if I call you poor, will that motivate more of you to give money? So that's a whole different story. But the Cougs said no to the $30 million, which I thought was really interesting. And like I said, when I first heard about the deal, I was intrigued. But after reading about one half of an article, I was so out. And like, look, a lot of people are going to hate this deal because they hate private equity and they believe private equity does a good job of ruining everything it touches. And by people, me, I don't love private equity all the time. I do think that it doesn't do a good job a lot of times. You see with like restaurants and stuff, they're really in it for the
I'll get to, it does a specific job, just it doesn't line up with the one we would want it to do.
correct, correct. They're not suddenly going to be like, oh man, I'm so excited. Here's even more money to go win. I've seen it happen one time, and it is with an F1 team, and that team's not doing so hot this year. Which be on the lookout. There might be an F1 summer show coming up.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the deal because it's just a loan, right? You're getting revenue done now, but you're going to have to pay it back later at a double-digit interest rate. You're giving up future TV revenues for this. Redbird says, hey, man, we'll get you a great deal on that next TV deal. And then on the back end, they go, yeah, but you're going to pay us. So, yeah, we'll give you more money to do this TV deal, knowing that half of it's coming back to us. It's a fake. It almost feels like it's a fake TV deal, right? Yeah, we know that. Okay, fine. We'll start taking back. We'll offer you $5 million more a year for your TV deal, but you're going to have to pay us back $5 million a year for that loan that you took out. So, like, to me, it just didn't feel you're giving up your future TV revenues for this. If you think the Big 12 is going to make SEC money later down the road, then sure, you take this deal.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. While I think the conference is really healthy, I'm not sure I want to kneecap a future revenue for things now. I don't really see how the $30 million benefits us, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, we couldn't use $30 million. Every athletic program could use $30 million right now. But it's honestly feels like a terrible investment for the future. If you really needed like a ton of facilities upgrades, it could make a massive difference, right? If you're still playing in Hawthines or Robertson, or you're in Conference USA or the American and you're trying to get into the Big 12, hell yeah, give me the 30 million. That's going to get me to another conference, and that other conference TV deal is going to get me there. We need to upgrade our stadium. Our stadium, we're packing it to the gills. Our football team's doing amazing. We're sold out every game. $30 million will get us a second deck. Because you remember when we built TDECU, we built it so it had the ability to add a second deck if we needed to. We're selling out all the time, and we need to add that second deck, and that's going to generate a ton more revenue. Hell yeah, let's do it. You're playing in Hofheinz Pavilion, and you need to renovate to create the Fertitta Center that costs $60 million. $30 million does a great job in helping you get there for that, right? So that's when I see that this would be a great thing. Would it allow you to invest now and create like this amazing roster for football where you can go out and just buy a crazy roster? Sure. Probably it would do that. But I really don't see that gets you good for a year, right? How do you pay the next $30 million roster in 2027, right? But I do think us denying it gives a good look at our finances as a university as well. It's clear by rejecting it, we feel that we're doing a fine job financially. We don't need to kneecap ourselves later. We're in a spot where we can take it. Maybe you want to take, like, maybe you take it to relieve some debt. But again, I'm not a Bauer guy, but if you're paying off debt that
you're also creating debt with that.
Yeah, yeah. If you now, if your current debt is at 22%, then yeah, you take the 30 million, you pay it off, and then you have the 10 million. But I have a hard time believing that our current debt is over 10 million, right? Or is over 10%. That seems kind of high for a large amount of money like this. And I was listening, like I said, to a college football podcast about it, and one of the guys who actually like broke the news of the deal, they were laughing at it. They called it magic beans, right? They were like, so when they were explaining it to you, were they like, hey, yeah, sure, I should have went and bought milk, but I got these magic beans, and they have a beanstalk, and they could produce gold. Like, I didn't love the Big Ten private equity deal that they were kind of looking at that fell apart, but it was better than this deal, in my opinion. The Big Ten was sharing the costs between all of the schools. Each school was going to receive about $120 million, and the firm that gave them that cash would essentially just become another member of the Big Ten. So when they got the TV deal, they would just add another piece of the pie, right? So you're getting paid out $120 million, and everyone eats at the interest that you had to pay. It's not just Ohio State would lose the money, right? Penn State had the same skin in the game. Michigan still had the same skin in the game. Rutgers had the same skin in the game. So that feels like a better thing if you're going to do it as a conference. Everyone has to agree to it. It gets spread the cost gets spread across all the members. And that's just wildly different than what we were going to see from the Big 12 one. like I said earlier, when I heard that it was going to be 0 teams or somewhere between 2 and 5, I really thought U of H was going to be one of the 2 or 5. Um, and how they kind of said it was they thought one team could use the money, they were going to take it, and then a few other teams would be like, wait a minute, they got the money, we need the money, and then kind of take it, and it would kind of build on that. But when you saw the Central Florida Golden Knights reject it, I and U of H does it, I have a hard time believing any school is going to. I haven't seen if Cincy's going to take it, but a lot of the schools that were coming into the Big 12 maybe could have used it, but all of us get the full rev share this year. So I think that certainly plays a role in not taking it as well. You're going to see a big jump in your revenue just off getting the full share. I do wonder what the Big 12 is going to do with the 12.5 million. Like, what are the revenue generating things that will allow them to make more money as a conference? And maybe it is working that TV deal, and it gets you more money because you have an in with CBS and TNT Sports, and maybe you can go to market a little bit earlier. They give you a little bit of a boost, but it's not like that 12.5 is going to cover an exit fee from like a team leaving the ACC or something like that. So I do just kind of wonder what that looks like for the conference.
I'm not going to be super dogmatic about private equity here, but they exist for earning good returns. If Redbird Capital is loaning you money, it's not coming from Redbird Capital out of the goodness of their heart. It's coming back at a pretty decent interest rate. Like that's the guaranteed return right there for these PE groups investing in college athletics. And I think these firms generally don't want to be seen as the last one to discover a new emerging market, in this case, college sports, and how to make a buck off that. So it shouldn't be escaping the attention of the people who are in power at all of these Big 12 schools, of any school that maybe hypothetically takes this deal, that you're going to have to pay the piper eventually. And like you said earlier, maybe you're just hoping for a huge conference media rights deal, or I don't know, man, some more big boosters created by a successful run because of that cash infusion that's created. But I mean, that kind of seems like a stretch. I mean, if anyone in charge at those schools that, again, hypothetically take this deal, and I think it's a fair question, who's going to take this deal if U of H and UCF aren't at this point? If anyone at the schools, though, doesn't understand the reality of what they're dealing with private equity here, they shouldn't be in charge. This is an investment that Redbird Capital isn't losing on. Losing is a one-way street for any school who takes the money and invests it badly and doesn't improve their lot in life in the big public-facing sports. You're only going to be the loser if this money doesn't get invested right. And investing it correctly is a big risk, and you're still going to end up owing more than what you ended up getting paid in the first place. And like I said a moment ago, that's why I don't think a lot of other Big 12 schools, or any Big 12 schools necessarily, because I don't think anyone publicly has, as of tonight, May 5th, I don't think anyone has opted in. UCF, like U of H, I think before U of H, actually by a couple days, didn't opt in. Cincy, I haven't checked it in the last few hours, but when I looked earlier, Cincy, no word one way or the other. That's what I could sort of see happening. I'm not advocating for it necessarily, but I mean, let's be real. The football and the men's basketball have been a struggle for them. I mean, even the non-rev sports, man, like have been a pretty bad struggle for them as well. But I mean, football and men's basketball are driving the car in terms of eyeballs, in terms of revenue, and those have been a big struggle. But even then, I don't know if I would necessarily take this deal if I was Cincinnati. And the reason I don't think there's going to be a lot of schools ultimately that opt in is that it looks desperate. I don't believe, even with U of H being in a much more cash-strapped situation several years ago, and with, we'll just say, an athletic director a little more prone to making decisions like this one, I don't believe this ever would have flown at the university level, because there's a long list of things that Dr. Reno Couture excels at, but I can tell you, especially if you're a younger U of H student or alum listening, both of us attended U of H for at least a short time before Dr. Couture was really getting things going here. I can't describe to you how much she's done for U of H's image specifically. There's substantive stuff as well, but U of H's image specifically. And Dr. Couture would be quite aware of how taking this Redbird Capital and Weatherford Capital money would look from a school that has had questions asked about its long-term ability to commit to being a big boy conference athletic program, whose, you mentioned earlier, most public-facing head coach. We talked a few months ago about U of H being historically a poor program, and not being untruthful in saying that, by the way. So I think that, along with mountains of publicly available evidence, the fact that U of H has retained nearly all of its key projected returners in football and men's basketball, exciting high school and transfer classes coming in both sports as well, using the portal really effectively. Bobby, what do all those things I just rattled off there require?
Money.
Good old fashioned American money. And I'm not saying anything concrete here. There are some schools who will always have the ability to spend more money than U of H. That's fine. It's literally always been like that, even 30, 40 years ago, when U of H was at the time, and what was the at the time equivalent of Power Conference in the SWC. But it's good to see clear evidence of U of H having money, spending it wisely, and in the case of this RedCoog Capital deal, not being desperate to get some in, even knowing that you're going to owe more back in the future. Weirdly enough, though, I am glad the Big 12 presidents allowed this to happen. Because even after spending a good amount of airtime, I think, here with you saying how glad I am that U of H didn't take the one-time credit, and some of it's a very cynical, I think, take from me. And that's not 100% of how I think here, but I don't know, Bobby, if 2 or 3 hypothetical other Big 12 schools take this deal, it's probably not going to work out great for 2 or 3 of those schools. And I think those are going to be the kind of teams that are potentially competing with musical chairs, metaphorically, with you, if we're having a conference realignment here in the next 5 or 6 years. It's good to know that U of H right now is not in desperate enough straits to have to take this PE money. I mean, there's a little bit of that on my mind, but I think the main reason is that while there should obviously be a legal limit of where this loan practice becomes just fucking loan sharking, I think if you're willing to make the bet of a PE cash infusion, you should be allowed. But like those Klarna or Affirm high interest loans that are so popular among like our age group and slightly younger, nobody's gonna feel too bad for you if you get to a bad spot as a result of having to pay back that money at a higher interest rate than, we'll say, is standard. I mean, you can't regulate good organizational decision making, and I'm fine with this being a completely voluntary opt-in kind of deal, even if I am, to say not for the first or last time, very glad that U of H is not taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, like I said, a little worried that we would be one of the schools to take it, especially when I heard kind of what it was. It's just a loan, like, and it's
Yeah, it's
not.
not necessarily the most predatory PE thing. It's not like, oh, they're going to own 40% of U of H athletics ad infinitum.
Yeah,
But
yeah. There's just, I don't see a benefit to it. What do we need the $30 million for? I'm not saying that we couldn't use $30 million. If somebody walked up and handed U of H $30 million, as they could find ways to spend $30 million, right? But knowing that it's going to come back when you have to, like I said, the Big Ten version makes sense. You just add another piece to the pie and you get a shit ton of money for it. You get $120 million. And $120 million, hell, you throw that in a couple of investments and you can probably cover your ass for at least a little bit of what the PE is going to look for in the difference in the TV
I would
deal.
have been, if that had been U of H's offer, I would have been intrigued. And I'm not someone who's necessarily pro private equity. I would have been intrigued by that if that had been
Right.
an identical offer to the Big 12.
Right. And I mean, there was some thing, and you know what's crazy about that Big Ten deal, because I was pretty invested in it. It was going to pay out based on tiers. Like Ohio State and Michigan were going to get more than Rutgers, which this is like the second shot I've taken at Rutgers tonight. That feels a little dirty, but they deserve it.
Yeah.
And so for me, like that deal makes sense. Like they were going to create a new company that owned all the rights to the Big Ten media, and everyone was going to have to sign a bill of grant of rights or whatever, whatever. I almost called it the Bill of Rights. I don't know if you caught that. Which it's not that. The grant of rights or whatever it's called, where everyone agrees to stay in the conference and
Yes.
then you got to pay a ton of money. That was going to extend it for another 20 years or something crazy like that. It was going to be another 20 years grant of rights. And so that deal makes sense, right? All the TV money goes to this other company, right? They create this new company, and the private equity owns 10% of that, which is more than a slice of the pie, but like that makes sense, right? I can easily see that everyone eats the cost of that company owning 10% of the media rights. Everyone shares in that deal. Rutgers is going to have to pay it back. Michigan is going to have to pay it back. Like they're taking money from everybody, and everyone had to agree to it, and that's where it fell apart.
Yeah, USC, not for the first time, made some of its conference mates angry with its decision making. At least this time, they didn't destroy the West Coast's preeminent college conference there.
Yeah,
Uh,
what a program to be a fan of, by the way.
yeah, exactly. So we'll get back to the on-field Cougar action. We are 1 week away right now from previewing the Big 12 outdoor track and field meet and what your Cougars could potentially do there, because that will be going on after we record next week's episode. But enough performances from last week's regular season finale, the Cam Burrell Memorial Invitational, that it was worth checking back in with the athletes over at H-Town Speed City. You got, I think, several notable performances, but two, I would say, all-timer performances. Freshman Sean Aigobo, who I believe I name checked last week as a Cougar sprinter to watch for the future. Bobby, scratch that. I would say
The
Sean.
future is now.
The future is now. Sean put in a performance worth emphatically upgrading him to, quote, Cougar sprinter to watch right now. He was currently tied for the third fastest time in the entire country in the 200 meter with a time of 20.27 seconds, but kind of buried the lead there because he also broke his home country, the Ireland national record in the 200 meter. Really incredible stuff. I think it's impossible to have that not steal the headline. But an athlete we've talked a pretty good amount this season, indoor and outdoor, thrower CJ Nwokeji, broke the U of H program record in the men's shot put. Currently has the 7th best performance in the men's shot this season. I mean, two really incredible performances, Bobby, like breaking a national record in one of the most commonly ran sprinting events, and in CJ Nwokeji's case, breaking the all-time record in his discipline in the program. Like really, really cool. Like not only notable performances, but I would say even for a program that produces a lot of like really great moments, really great athletes, that's much better than average that we get to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 200 setting a country record. I don't care what the country is. That's impressive. That means you're the fastest person to ever run for that country in that event. That's absolutely insane. The fastest NCAA time this year that's win legal. Pretty good, man. Pretty good there. We talked about all that, and then just don't forget Cleo Ajapong wins the women's shot put. You had Cordell Nwokeji setting the school record in the men's shot put. You're just seeing a ton of performances. The performances at the Cam Burrell were absolutely incredible. Just I know it's going to be good when they're like, oh, click the link for the results and the summary, and I have to scroll like 4 times to get through all of the events that we won, were a medalist in, and set school records in. Like it's just crazy kind of what you see, and we've pointed this out before. The thing that really makes you get excited is you see a lot of sophomore, a lot of junior, a lot of freshmen, redshirt sophomore. Like this team, while it does have the seniors on it that you expect from a really good team in any sport, it's pretty young too when you really look at your top performers.
Yeah, the other 3 athletes I have here, besides the 2 I've talked about already, are all junior or younger. Andre Amita Jr. came into the week with the 12th best performance in the men's high jump, held that place, had his best mark of this current outdoor season with a clearance of 7 feet 1.5 inches, keeps him tied for 12th nationally with Elias Gerald of USC and Ryan Rankin of Georgia. Your Cougar men's sprinters now have 2, Bobby, kind of 2 top 10 times nationally in the 4x1 relay, a slightly different group than the one at the Texas Relays, who had, I think, still has the 8th fastest time in the country. Guy we talked about a fair amount, Sean Aigobo. He subbed in for Michael Onilobo and ran with that group what is currently the 10th fastest time this outdoor season. If you zoom out even more, Bobby, the Cougs have 3 top 50 performances with different relays. 2 of the 3 which included Aigobo. The other one ran the I think current tied for 46th fastest time about a month ago at A&M's 44 Farms Invitational. Like, pretty sick, man. You also had sophomore Ty Lott, another program record-breaking performance, broke the U of H record in the men's hammer throw shortly after Nwokeji did it in the shot put. Had a best throw of 219 feet, 5 inches. Especially exciting because, as I mentioned a moment ago, Lott's only a sophomore and is right around where you need to be performance-wise to advance past conference championship portion of the season. Probably has to have one more really good one to feel comfortable about moving on to prelims from the conference championship meet, but currently has the best performance of any Big 12 athlete in the men's hammer throw this outdoor season, which it's pretty cool. So lots of exciting stuff there. We will certainly have plenty to talk about next week when we will preview the Big 12 outdoor championship meet in earnest, but the performances were good enough at the final regular season meet that we definitely had to find a little time to talk some H-Town Speed City. Sticking with the Cougar sports here, we'll go to the offseason now, though. Right after we recorded our last podcast, funny how that always breaks, Bobby, we got big news in the world of Cougar women's basketball, who got a really big transfer addition last week. Raegan McGowan, a 6-foot guard who played the previous 3 seasons at Western Illinois. And you might, not think when you hear that a player came from Western Illinois that, oh, wow, we got a player from Western Illinois. We got a Leatherneck to join the Cougars. Bobby may have looked up their mascot there, but
I was going to say, I don't think anyone saw Western Illinois and was like, oh man, we got a Leatherneck, because no one knows it's Leatherneck. That's why you come to the SH podcast.
That's why you come to the SH podcast. But I promise you, Raegan McGowan is a player worth being really excited about. This past season, her junior year, she only played in 10 games, missed from mid-December through the end of the season with an elbow injury, and averaged a career low 17 points per game in this partial season. But her first 2 seasons in college were incredible. As a sophomore, 2024-25, she averaged over 22 points per game, just under 8 rebounds per game. Also shot just under 80% at the free throw line and 34.6% from 3, was first team all Ohio Valley Conference and named to the conference's all tournament team as a freshman in 23-24. She led the Ohio Valley Conference in scoring at 19.2 points per game, set the conference record, Bobby. 13 different freshman of the week selections that season. Was obviously first team all conference, the conference freshman of the year. A lot to be excited about there. Kind of listed a decent amount of the highlights off, but what are your thoughts on the newest Cougar women's basketball player, Bobby?
Yeah, I think for me, what I've been looking for with any of these transfers is one, size, and a 6-foot guard gives you a good amount of size on the court for women's basketball. But the other thing is, the last 2 years in particular, and with a roster that was a lot of the same from the year before this past season, the inability to put the ball in the bucket has been a major problem. And Raegan McGowan puts the ball in the bucket. It took her 50 games to get 1,000 points. That's 20 points a game, basically. I don't know if we had anybody who's played at any level who has averaged, numbers like she has. Just a pure bucket getter. So really excited. Like you said, you hear Western Illinois and you might not get really excited. It's tough to put the ball in the basket at any level and shoot at the level that she does. While we might see some of her numbers dip because it is that bumping competition, you're still going to see, if you know how to shoot at one level, you know how to shoot at another level, right? If you're somebody who relies on back to the basket and things like that, then maybe it's a problem. But you kind of look up Raegan McGowan and you just see she can put the ball in the bucket and she shoots really well.
Yeah, I wanted to also mention that she took an official campus visit to Iowa before committing to the Cougars. And there's a decent chance that U of H was able to offer her a bigger role than maybe Iowa could have. But Iowa didn't bring in one of the country's top mid-major players to ask her to play 5 to 10 minutes per game here. So to me, yes, it's definitely an endorsement that one of the sport's better programs or more consistent teams in the postseason wanted to bring McGowan in, but you were able to get her. Love that she's a strong rebounding guard. Really love that she's a slasher. Like, she could shoot the three somewhat, but she averaged about 3-point attempts per game her last full season. So not really a volume shooter from deep. I mean, put it this way. In those 2 full seasons she played at Western, she had 300, actually exactly 300 free throw attempts and 127 3-pointers, and was really, really good at the free throw line both those seasons. That kind of tells you what her game is right there. And like every other transfer who has come to Houston so far this cycle, potentially 2 more years of eligibility, because it sounds like she got a medical red shirt for that most recent season that she missed the majority of. I also really like that she stuck around for 3 years at her last school. That might seem like an odd thing to fixate on because she's transferring now, but by all rights, she could have left after being the conference freshman of the year and top league scorer. Certainly could have left after that sophomore season where she was one of the top scorers in the entire country, conference player of the year, all that jazz. But she wanted to stick around to try and lead that team to a conference title, to an NCAA tournament. That tells me she's committed to a place when she actually says she is. That tells me she has a higher likelihood of sticking around for a multi-year build like the one that we think Mitchell is kind of putting together here in Houston. Of course, never a good idea to get overly invested in that thought, certainly in this current era, but just something I noticed. I mean, for the big picture of this team, worth keeping expectations realistic. You won 1 game last year. That kind of thing doesn't get flipped overnight, but I mean, it's insane how much higher both the floor and the ceiling look for this coming season's Cougar women's basketball team compared to not just last year, but the last several. I think the only thing at this point that I would want to see Coach Mitchell do that he hasn't done already is bring in a point guard. McGowan's not really a point guard. None of the other transfer high school signee guards, I don't think, are point guards. And while this coming year's team is much, much more talented and proven, one of those things that did plague last year's team was not really having a capable primary ball handler. Obviously, trust Mitchell and the staff here, but if we bring in a better Powers Conference team's backup point guard or an accomplished mid-major point guard, I go from being very hyped to as hyped as I've been for a season since the last time we made the women's basketball tournament. And that's 15, 16 years ago at this point. Still hyped right now. Staff has knocked it out of the park building this coming season's roster, but just wanted to mention that while on the topic. And obviously Raegan McGowan, just another reason to be very, very excited for what Matthew Mitchell and his staff are building here.
Yeah, you can definitely see how Coach Mitchell is putting his fingerprint and really building the roster that he truly wants in a multi-year build, like you mentioned.
We'll go back to the in-season sports here, but we'll try to keep it short and sweet for our last in-season Cougar sports topic of the show, Cougar baseball, who went 1-4 last week, winning a midweeker against McNeese, but losing an earlier midweeker to SFA and then getting swept in their home Big 12 series against Cincy. I actually watched a good amount of the series opener, which was the first of a Saturday doubleheader, early afternoon, kind of late morning my time, because I was home, I was doing laundry and other household stuff. There wasn't an NBA playoff series going on, there wasn't an NHL one going on, so kind of had that on while I was like doing laundry and various household things, but got to watch a decent amount of it. And gotta say, Bobby, it was a classic this year's U of H baseball team kind of performance, because there were actually positives. I mean, Kendall Hoffman had one of his best pitching performances of his Cougar career, maybe his best of the season, 8 1/3, only allowed 2 earned runs. And I can say from watching him, was notably stronger over his final several innings. Like, his pitch count was, and you could see it on screen, up over 100. And watching live, I never questioned why he was still in the game. I was just like, I hope someone's up warming up ready in case this does break bad. But he was particularly strong, like 5th through 8th, 4th through 8th innings. Really, honestly, the second inning was the only notably poor inning he had. Like, he just wasn't missing bats, because, like, I think I told you, the first run he gave up was a guy who had walked on a borderline pitch, and then U of H's right fielder, who eventually got pulled for Blake Fields, who frankly should have been in there in the first place, misplaying a fly ball and that scoring the run and putting U of H down 1-0. I mean, your offense, the reason why you lost this game, your offense only managed 2 runs, including failing to get a runner home, I believe, from scoring position for the second in the 7th and 8th innings. It's the story of the weekend. I mean, you got another
story of the season, man.
story. Well, I mean, story of your pitching has also been shitty at times too. So
Yeah,
let's not let's not give the pitching too much credit. But I mean, on Sunday you got another 9 innings of 3-run ball. It's very good from a college staff, especially this college staff. But you couldn't get the run you need to win that one. Lost it in extras. I mean, season's just kind of it's very Groundhog Day kind of feel, Bobby, isn't it?
yeah, for sure. It's just another one of those things where you could tell me anything happened with this team, and I'd be like, yeah, I probably believe that.
In home weekend series this season, Cougar baseball is 5-13. If you take out that non-conference series against just a very outmatched Arkansas Pine Bluff team, let's just be honest here, you're 2-13 against teams with a pulse, and you've been swept by now 3 straight Big 12 opponents in conference play. I mean, you can't be shocked whenever you turn on a broadcast like I did Saturday and see crowds in maybe the mid hundreds at Schrader Park, despite from everything I've heard, it was a great weather weekend.
Perfect weather, yeah.
In Houston, yeah, like early May, like the kind of, I think I saw it was like 72. I'm like 72 in early May. I would have killed for that the many years that I lived in Houston. But I mean, the on-field results don't justify it. I mean, we got some kind of fool's gold early in the season with some good non-conference wins, but I mean, once again, 8th straight season or so.
Yeah, what can we say that we haven't said in the last 2 months?
Yeah, I had something about. I mean, the Cougars are playing Arizona, who is typically is atypical for Arizona and not being very good, but neither are we. So
Yeah.
why
So,
spend that much time on this?
right.
That's my inspiring end to this segment. Bobby. That, Bobby, is just why spend any more time, honestly, talking about this that we don't have to.
I agree.
We also have 2 topics closing tonight that aren't directly related to U of H in the way that maybe the earlier Big 12 private equity story was directly related to U of H, but I believe intersect with U of H enough that here in a portion of the season where we only have a smaller percentage of the teams left playing, that we figured we had the time and space tonight to talk about them on this show. I would say these are 2 of the biggest, if not the biggest, college sports stories of the last week plus. We will specifically talking about in this order the NCAA's decision to expand the men's and women's basketball NCAA tournaments to 76 teams from 68, effective starting next March. And then after that, we will dive into new Texas Tech quarterback Brennan Sorsby's public gambling revelations and how that may affect Big 12 football in the coming season. Just our general thoughts on that as a college sports story. If you will allow me, Bobby, let me answer the what of NCAA tournament expansion before you and I talk about the why, and of course, give our strong opinions on it. So talk about that what here. Said it a moment ago, you're expanding from 68 to 76 teams. In these tournaments, there are theoretically votes that still have to be cast to truly finalize this expansion, but nobody who covers college basketball and has covered this story specifically thinks that any future votes here are anything but a formality. This is happening. Like, there's not anything in place, at least from the decision-making structure, to stop this going from 68 to 76. That these extra games, I guess the only good news is that the Thursday, Friday portion of the schedule is still going to be the round of 64. This just means a lot more games on Tuesday, Wednesday. Previously, exclusively, these were in Dayton, Ohio, and it sounds like Dayton will still host games, but that there's going to be an additional site that will take on some of these Tuesday, Wednesday games. I've heard rumor that it'll be somewhere further west, like Salt Lake City, but nothing at this point more substantial than a rumor. I mean, simply, you're adding 8 more teams to the field with those additional games, accommodating those additional 8 teams occurring on the Tuesday, Wednesday of the opening week of the tournament. I think we'll get more in the weeds on the new seed lines and what have you closer to the next NCAA tournament, where obviously we also hope that U of H continues to be nowhere near where those games are played, but at least, to give y'all that listen to the show and have listened to us for some years in some cases, an idea of what the new bracket is going to look like. Bobby, I think this is a stupid thing to be annoyed about on my part, but one of those things that's really sticking my craw about this, you know what it is?
What's that?
I feel like it's going to be impossible to get like a printed or a printed bracket at this point that accommodates all. It's already kind of a little difficult to have a 68 teams. I feel like doing a 76 teams is impossible. Not at all the most important thing, but just one of those things that was like front of mind for me. I was like, really, like this just makes this thing very stupid and impossible.
Yeah, and like when are you supposed to fill out your bracket? Because those first 8 games are like the night before the actual tournament starts, because then they get to play the
I
Friday
mean,
game.
you're
So
gonna have some like you'll have some like Tuesday afternoon my time, like out in the West
mhm,
Coast.
it's
So
just
like that less than what, like 48 hours after the bracket
yeah,
reveal.
yeah, it just and you're gonna get teams that and I won't take credit for this thought. When somebody said it, it dawned. I was like, "Holy crap, they're right." On College Basketball podcast that you and I both listen to. We respect the guys on there a ton. We
Yeah,
love what
they
they
did a
do.
very very good job covering this. I would recommend it to anyone
Yes,
listening.
yes. You probably listen to it as well if you're super interested in this and you want more in depth than from Sam and I. That's a great one to listen to. But they were saying there's going to be teams who want to fire their coach who make the tournament. And I hadn't even thought about that, but there are going to be, and they're absolutely right. There's going to be some awful teams on that get in this year, and we've seen it in the first four a couple of times. And you usually see one a year where a team goes and they were one of the last teams on the bubble. They're in the first four, and then they go on a bit of a run. We saw Texas do it this year, all the way to the Sweet 16. Now you increase that, and like that's kind of cool. But this idea that we're going to get these low major teams, the mid majors have a chance to get more, um, have a chance to get more schools in. No, it's going to be the 13th SEC team, and honestly, the 10th Big 12 team, right? The 10th Big 10 team. It's not. Get ready, guys. You're going to see Colorado in the tournament just because they get on a little bit of a run. Not Colorado. You know what I mean? But it's just like the we're not letting in more one seeds, right? You're letting in, and I always hate when they say like, oh, if you win the NIT, you're the 69th best team in the country. No, you're letting in like it used to be before the expansion this year. You usually had to be about top 40, 45 in KenPom to be at large and get in. You're going to see some teams 55, 60 that are going to get in with this new format. And I just do not like that.
And the why behind this, I think, is pretty undebatably. This is an effort by a cash-strapped organization, the NCAA, to squeeze more dollars and in the future have potential rights holders the next time the NCAA can negotiate that from an event that's far and away its biggest moneymaker. I mean, worth a reminder, the college football playoff is not an NCAA property, even though it
Yep.
features NCAA schools. But, and I don't think I'm breaking any ground here by saying this, adding 8 teams to this tournament to me doesn't make it much more valuable, because I don't think college basketball fans, whether you're talking to people who are closer to diehards or people who are closer to casuals, I don't think having additional 8 teams really moves the needle. I don't think someone who maybe watches a handful of regular season games but is mostly locked in on the tournament like Thursday, Friday of the first week and going forward is going to be like, oh man, I can't wait to see the 13th best SEC team against the 9th best ACC team at 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Like that's not anything that's happening in real life. I think college basketball fans aren't stupid enough to be like, ooh, it's 76 now. Ooh, it's shiny. And like networks, as craven as they are, I mean, it's like a little more inventory here, but maybe that act of being able to offer more inventory makes it slightly more valuable. But I feel like that's offset by just the watering down of, I mean, because the bubble wasn't great this year, and maybe this year
No.
was unusual for that, but this wasn't a bubble where it was like, oh man, like I mean, the irony being like this expansion would allow someone like Belmont, who had a great mid-major regular season, is just never getting any big boy to give them the time of day and scheduling, but does awesome, but has kind of a bad day at a conference tournament, and that's their season. But the irony being, that's not who this expansion is going to serve. I'm not going to say a mid-major will never get the benefit of these additional slots. They probably will. Like, just inevitably, when the bubble's this big, inevitably one of those teams on there is going to have kind of a Miami of Ohio or Belmont-ish resume, but it's going to serve exactly who you and I have said it's going to serve. The teams that have good metric ratings because they play in a good conference. They might have had a couple of decent non-conference wins in like November, December, and their ratings are kind of still hanging on because of it. Auburn this year would have comfortably made the field with 8 more teams. Like that's the future, I guess, we have now. Like a team like Auburn that was barely above 500, they're going to make the tournament, and they're going to make the tournament without much problem.
Yep. And that's that I don't see how that makes the best. I talked about the worst postseason in all of sports to start this, and somehow we're making the best one worse. It's like, it's a very cliche thing to say everything sucks now, right? Everything is worse, because when you really think about it, the reason why everything is worse is because we as consumers don't want to pay for the high quality. We want the cheapest product now.
Yep.
So I kind of laugh at that idea, but this makes the NCAA. I'm not going to be super excited on Selection Sunday when they basically announce it. Here's the thing. We act like this is going to drive better TV ratings because it has the NCAA tournament attached to it. If you told me Auburn versus Texas was a basketball game happening on a Saturday, you'd go, what other games you got going on?
Yeah. Maybe I should just go grocery shopping. Maybe I should just go outside.
Yeah. And that's not to be like, oh, I hate Auburn and I hate Texas, which I want to be clear, I do.
Coincidental to the story.
Yes. Fill in your team that was on the bubble this year that probably shouldn't have made the NCAA tournament. And they're creating boring regular season games and they're calling it the NCAA tournament.
And you can attest to this, Bobby. I'm someone who consumes as much of the first 2 days of the tournament as possible. Generally somebody who watches a vast majority of the NCAA tournament. But for me, the first 4 already wasn't appointment viewing. If I had a conflict that Tuesday or Wednesday night, it sure as shit will not now all of a sudden become more of a must watch because, there are more games that day. No chance.
No.
I mean, that opening Thursday, Friday, thankfully will still be compelling. It's still round of 64. You'll still have good matchups. In addition to everything else great about this event, thankfully you still have that Thursday, Friday as is. But to say it not for the first time here, there's nothing compelling to me about the 12th best SEC team playing the 11th best Big Ten team in Dayton or Salt Lake or wherever. I mean, and what you described, what I've described now multiple times, that's going to be what these extra Tuesday, Wednesday games are more often than that. Any talking head, any Seth Davis, any Seth Greenberg, any whoever who says, this is going to be a boon for mid-majors, they're fucking lying. They're lying to their teeth. Someone wanted them to use their platform to say that. And again, is that going to keep me from watching the Thursday, Friday, the tournament, enjoying U of H making deep runs, enjoying the dramatic games? No, but I'm also not going to come on here and tell you, the people listening, anything other than what you or I believe. Fans of the sport aren't stupid. Nobody's going to feel super pumped to be one of these additional 8 teams in the field. No head coach from a bigger conference program who's on a hot seat is going to have their job saved by being the second to last team in a 76 team field. Schools and fans aren't that stupid, but apparently the NCAA thinks they could squeeze a few more dollars out of it. I don't think it really accomplishes any of its stated goals. Fans aren't going to be moved by this, either as the casual viewing public or fans of the teams who are now in the tournament field who would have been otherwise. And I have a hard time seeing this 76 team March Madness product being that much more valuable as a media property than it was as a 68 team product. I mean, it's rare you can get the sports viewing public to agree on much, Bobby, but I am
pretty
so
much
confident.
Everyone says this is a terrible idea.
Yeah. I'm so confident that if you pulled this issue, big program fans, mid-major program fans, hardcores, more casuals, I am so confident it would have been the most unanimous support of an issue that you'd see people come together on. from people who otherwise would not agree on very much sports wise, and probably in a lot of cases non-sports wise. I mean, you'll have
I
some
agree.
contrarians, you'll have some people who may have convinced themselves it's good in some way that other people don't see. But I mean, in a country as divided as effort, you would have seen rare levels of support for keeping it at 68, and yet we're talking about a tournament that's about to be a 76 team tournament.
Yep, absolutely.
We got some very, very, very late breaking Cougar news. As in, I mean, we've been podcasting for the last hour and some change, so not like Bobby and I have had a ton of time to look at this. But the Cougs got a commitment from the current number one player per 247 in the state of Nevada. Shout out Silver State, Las Vegas. Tyus Thomas, younger brother of D-Dan Thomas, the current Cougar point guard commit, just committed to University of Houston. Was a high 3-star recruit. The 247 composite has him as the number 253 player in his class, number 34 point guard, but number one prospect in the state of Nevada. So pretty decent commitment, Bobby. I think a guy who's probably going to need to be more of a long-term development guy. Not an expert on Tyus Thomas here just yet, but excited to get another member of the family here. And I would say Tyus was the level of recruit that 5 or 6 years ago we've been like, oh yeah, he's going to come in here and develop into a monster
Exactly.
by his senior year. And I could see a similar trajectory. I mean, Jamal Shed was a 3-star recruit. Lest we forget Marcus Sasser, 3-star recruit, lest we forget. So not guaranteeing that trajectory here, obviously, but excited to find this news out here late in the evening as we record this podcast, who the latest Houston Cougar basketball player is going to be for the men.
Yeah, certainly a little undersized at 5'10", but like you said, the kind of recruit that you see and go, oh yeah, here in about 2 years, he's going to be deadly for U of H.
So we might talk about that more next week, but figured since it did break during the show that we would at least address it and maybe have further thoughts on that next week. No idea how I transition out of high school player
It's all right.
men's basketball to this one, but we will go to our next scheduled topic within kind of this little off-topic space here at the end. Talk about the other big college sports news from the last week or so. That we had a major breaking story involving one of the highest profile transfer signings that any D1 football team made this last transfer portal cycle. Brendan Sorsby, who was presumed to be Texas Tech's new starting quarterback. News broke that Sorsby had taken a leave of absence from the Red Raider football program to enter an inpatient treatment program or facility, not clear exactly which, for compulsive sports gambling. After that, more details came out that apparently dating back to when he played at his very first school, Indiana, in 2022, that he had specifically wagered on that team to win during that 22 season. And in total, I guess I'd placed something like thousands of bets. Nobody, admittedly, of all the things Sorsby's accused of here, nobody's accusing him of point shaving or fixing games. We'll acknowledge that here at the top, but you can't in any way bet on a team you are playing for as a college athlete. And the NCAA has a strict and not at all secret policy forbidding athletes from gambling on sports, whether that's intercollegiate, amateur, or professional athletic competition. That's a direct quote. This is one of those rare cases where I'm 100% in favor of an NCAA rule being enforced exactly as written. If you're of a locality's age requirements, you want to use your hard-earned NIL money to play poker, blackjack, table games, slots, go ahead. But I, even as somebody who has and very occasionally still does gamble, fully agree with an extremely stringent, downright outlawing of collegiate and professional athletes betting on sports. Bobby, thoughts on all this with Sorsby and anything that could happen next?
Yeah, I think the one rule that he broke that I go, oh my God, about is absolutely you can't bet on your own team. I think you shouldn't be betting on college football, but when you bet on your own team, I mean, Pete Rose still isn't in the Hall of Fame because of it. They said it was a lifetime ban, and he's passed, and they still banned him. That's crazy. And again, no point shaving, no anything like that has been made towards him. No accusations of that have been made towards him. You can't bet on your own team. That's where things go over the line for me. The going to the Cincinnati Reds games and betting on individual pitches, To be honest, Sam, if we had access to bets like that when we were in college, there's a good chance when we used our Powerade bottles to get $1 tickets to Astros games, when it would be us and about 20 other people in the stands. Um, there's a good chance you and I would have been doing dumb stuff like that. Like
Just like
I,
cursing because Wandy Rodriguez keeps throwing first pitch balls, and I keep betting
yeah,
strike.
yeah,
He's got to
yeah,
throw a strike
yeah,
eventually, Bobby. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I agree
yeah.
with you there. Yeah.
Will, getting plus 10,000 on Carlos Lee, hitting a double, having to go past first base on not a home run, right? Like, I definitely could see you and I doing, because they said the bets at those baseball games were like $1 at a
And
time, and
they
that
said
is,
a lot of his transactions were like the small ones, but also that there are thousands of them.
yeah, and again, that's some shit you and I would have done when we were in college. We would have brought Dustin along with us. He was a rule follower back then, and he would have not done that with us. But we absolutely would have done something like that. So like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't love if he's betting on college football. But I can even see like, oh, you're not betting on that. You're not betting on teams you play on your schedule or anything along those lines, right? I don't love that, but I'm okay with that. I think where he crossed the line was absolutely betting on his own team. Because you start to question the integrity of the game. And again, no one's accused him of shaving points or anything like that. But all it takes is one person to get in your ear, and then you get in a receiver's ear. And it's not like those Indiana teams those years were particularly good. Not many people were watching the games that they were playing in. Oh, he's gonna drop the ball. You could probably get away with it a little bit more. And you can't do that. That's where you start to push the integrity of the game. And when you start to question the integrity of the game, and that the outcomes aren't rigged, that's where you get into a really, really bad spot as a sport.
Yeah, he did one of the very few things that you absolutely cannot do, with the only exception being that, okay, well, he didn't. No one's accusing necessarily of shaving or fixing. Also because he played in one game that season, so there really wasn't that much Bryn Sorsby in 2022 could have done to affect it. But I think there are larger questions, and we don't have the time to do it, but I think there are larger questions to be asked about just how easy it is. Like, it's probably a good thing, because I fully agree with everything you said about the likelihood of you or I, if such technology existed in the late aughts, doing that kind of dumb shit, while Dustin probably like laughed at us and didn't lose $5 to $10 betting late aughts Astros pitchers ball strikes. You know what I mean? Like, we have to ask. And I'm generally someone who's of the mind, like, if you're of the legal age to do it, like, you can't regulate for responsible consumer behavior. Like, plenty of people have just absolutely terrible problems with alcohol. Plenty of people have the ability to have one or two drinks and not have it ruin their life or become an addicting thing. And it's like, well, as a society, do you punish the many, or however many, who can function fine with alcohol, for people who just for whatever reason are problem drinkers? It applies to gambling too, but also at the same time, you know this. I had a significant other, a former significant other, who, not a big sports fan, had to really get it in while I could get it in to watch sports and have my home life not be stressful, Bobby. And so in the year and change since that relationship ended, I've watched a lot more live sports on TV, not like stuff I recorded and like fast forward through commercials and stuff like that. And even in this last year, just the amount of gambling ads there are now,
It's
like, just the
crazy.
volume. And I am somebody who has bet a decent amount, and I'm just like, it's being advertised as, oh, it's so easy to hit a parlay. Oh, it's so easy. Like, use this promo code to have this thing. And it's like, it's pushing people towards low value bets. It's like, it is very boring, but the best way to at least win a small amount of money gambling is, to use the baseball metaphor, be a singles hitter. Obviously, there are some bets that are so likely to hit that the payout isn't worth it, but it's finding that sweet spot of stuff that's likely to pay out. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. It's, I think this team minus 105, or someone, someone to cover, someone who's genuinely pretty good to cover, but not in a way you're not
Why
going to
are they
make.
taking advice from you, guy who's lost pickness the last 2 years? See, I can talk smack too, Sam.
It's fair. It's fair. And I guess you're a better customer for the kind of the props, because that's the other thing, like parlays and props, like they love steering people to like, this parlay, this parlay is definitely gonna hit. And it's like, buddy, that parlay almost never hits. Like you're just making a $25 donation to
that parlay's
DraftKings.
plus 2,300 for a reason.
There's a reason why you'd win a crazy amount of money if it hits, because it's not going to probably hit, buddy.
Yep.
And props too, which I mean, you absolutely kicked my ass on last season. And like you mentioned the segment we did here, like the only thing we bet in that segment was
a couple hours of our time.
Yeah, my time listening to the absolute worst new country album put onto God's green earth. Like it wasn't like I owed Bobby $300 and he was going to break my knees for not paying him or something like that. But that's
right.
That's the situation a lot of like younger, I would say younger than us men find themselves in these days. And we're not the podcast to solve that problem or dive into it, but I just couldn't get away from that with the story, Bobby. I couldn't get away from just being like, I'm somebody who, like, we've had opportunities. I'll just say it. We had an opportunity a few years ago to, I think it was either right before or right when you started becoming involved, to get Prize Picks involved. Fairly big company with us through our network. And it was never something we really considered, because as much as I personally have enjoyed, like you and I went to a sports book out here, a Circus sports book, a few falls ago, had a great time, bet on I bet on Sorsby's Indiana team. Remember I had him like plus 1 million points against Michigan, and they did not cover. They had like a late touchdown get called back for holding. Like that was a fun afternoon. I didn't leave the afternoon being like, I gotta drop like $5,000 more on this. We played some bets, we had some fun, and I probably put less than 10 bets down the entire rest of the couple months of the season after that. Like it's just I am never going to be able to beat the books. It's the fallacy you get when you move out here, Bobby. People think like, I'm gonna come out here and I'm gonna be a successful sports bettor. I'm gonna become a successful poker and blackjack player, and it's just like, buddy, get into a line of thousands of people who are better than you at this, and some of those people still don't make money.
And there's a reason why they're able to build casinos.
Yeah. So
that neon ain't free.
Yeah, neon ain't free. I will say, what makes me question the sincerity of like Sorsby's desire to get better, and that this isn't just a big fucking publicity stunt to get him entering a program after getting caught, essentially, to rehab his image and increase his likelihood of getting on the field in 2026, hired prominent antitrust attorney Jeffrey Kessler, who been involved in so many different things, but was very prominently involved in I think Brady's suspension, whenever that was 12, 13 years ago. It all kind of runs together at this point. But somebody who clearly hired him / his family hired to kick the tires on, can he play this season? And I'm not saying like you got, and probably some of this is like big picture, like, okay, he's looking at what his options are long term. Does he enter the supplemental draft, the NFL, during the summer? Does he try to get back on the field? But I think if he wants to put out a statement at some point saying how sorry he is and how many people he affected, I think his actions, or his people's actions here to hire somebody whose express job it is to try to get him back on the field, I think speaks otherwise. I'm not saying you should just give up football forever and become a monk or something like that. Like, as bad as this is, I don't think this should prevent Brendan Sorsby from ever playing football again.
But, yeah, I agree with that.
But if he gets on the field this coming season, like if he is the starting quarterback for Texas Tech against U of H in week 3, I will not watch that game in principle. As a crock of shit like that. There are some things that you should have to miss significant time for, which again, I'm reiterating, he should at some point, if he has teams interested in him to do so, play football. If he plays the majority of the season after betting on his own team and being by all definitions a compulsive gambler, something that college athletes aren't even allowed to do a little of. And if he's somehow able to do some legal Calvin ball to get on a field this year because they find a friendly judge in Texas, and this is like a football Bediako situation, it's a stain on the sport. It would be a stain on Texas Tech. And I think they would be smart to realize that they still have a pretty good team. They still have probably the conference's best defense. They still have good skill and line talent around whoever's going to be the quarterback. And this is something you're going to agree with me really strong with, Bobby. I think Sorsby is pretty overrated. Like, I still think he's probably one of the best portal quarterbacks. I think he's probably an upgrade over Baron Morton. But whenever I saw he was, and I'm not as down on him as you are, but whenever I saw he was the number one quarterback, I was just like, really? Like, he's like pretty good quarterback and might be an upgrade over what they had, but like 5-star portal recruit, like, what are we talking about here? Like, and that's why if I was Tech, I'd just be like, sucks. Let's claw back whatever money we can get, but let's wash our hands of this and see what we can do, because it is going to be a stain on them and just the sport in general if he's allowed to play the majority of the season. I would go as far as say play it all, but I feel like this kind of transgression, if it doesn't get a most of the season level suspension at least, like what are we doing here? What's punishable anymore? Like what's the point in enforcing rules if gambling on your own team, if gambling at a high volume when you're not allowed to do it at all isn't a severe punishable offense?
Yeah, for me, I could see like a half season, 6-game ban. Like you, I am lower on this guy than you are. I didn't think he was very good at um at playing the position of quarterback. I know you can point to touchdowns but buddy, he I think he completed like 30% of his passes versus Utah. Good quarterbacks don't do that. They just don't. I just Yes, he had some good stats, things like that. So when we look at it, just kind of what does it mean for the season? I think he should be out at least half the season. Maybe I'm with you that I don't necessarily agree that he's actually sorry for his actions. Not even based on the lawyer that he had, but going to rehab and hiring the lawyer is so clearly a look, he's trying to be better. He knows he made a mistake. He's trying to be better. Oh, so he wasn't trying to be better when he was at Indiana doing it. In fact, he transferred to Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati, he did it there. Maybe he didn't bet on Cincinnati, but he was clearly betting on Reds
Yeah,
games.
he was doing betting of some kind, like the Reds game you talked about.
Yeah, yeah. So like and I'll be honest, my conspiracy theory, the one I buy into, is Sorsby has the is having problems with Cincy right now, and Cincy's saying you owe us an IL money that was in your contract, the buyout, blah 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 blah, and we knew some shit like this was eventually going to happen, and he's not paying it, right? He just kept not paying it. He kept not paying it. He kept not paying it, and then suddenly this comes out. Everyone knew. I wonder if Indiana knew, right? Cincy definitely knew, and I believe Cincy let this leak. I think Cincy is the one who let this leak because you're not going to pay us, fine. He ain't playing anywhere.
Yeah, I think I generally agree with that, but also it's one of those things that I'm not really super concerned on who dropped the dime here, because it's not like it's not like someone framed him like, oh, like he didn't actually place these thousands. I mean, no one seems to be disputing what he's being accused of here in the most general terms. You know, that he placed a lot of bets, that he placed at least one bet on Indiana while he was a member of the Indiana football program in 2022. Like, there doesn't seem to be that much dispute of those facts here. But I think, yeah, purely the fact of hiring a lawyer, and again, we don't know exactly what legal machinations like he's going to be involved in ultimately, but it sure seems like the move to kind of do what Charles Bediako kind of did with a different kind of situation with Alabama, and finding a friendly judge who'll get you a temporary restraining order against the NCAA, which will allow you to go in. And I think if Tech abides by it, if Joey McGuire abides by it, like you can safely never call yourself people of character and people of principle ever again in this life.
Tech? Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Really gonna stretch credulity there with them.
Sorry.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm glad you said it. Like if any kind of program is gonna do that kind of scumbaggery, it wouldn't surprise me if it's them. Again, I'm sure Cody Campbell's Botox budget is gonna take a decent hit to help pay for Jeffrey Kessler here. But,
right.
But I guess short-term pain, long-term gain. Bobby.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this topic? Any other thoughts on anything tonight that we talked about in this podcast?
No, we even got that breaking news of Didon's brother signing with us. Like you said, we'll have more on that next week.
Yeah, we'll breaking news for the first time in a while. All right, buddy, take us home.
Hold on, just real quick. It's really funny because we heard the Duarte tweet or saw the Duarte tweet earlier today, and you and I made the joke that we were going to record this podcast because Duarte tweeted you're going to see 2 signings today, and it will be one we already talked about, and there will be a high school recruit who signs. And we joked before we started recording that, of course, it's going to happen. We're gonna put this out, and then it's going to happen 9:30 the next day, right before we release the episode, and it happened during our podcast, and we were able to actually kind of cover it. So
sure did.
So just kind of fun, just a little behind the scenes there for you guys. But that is it for this week's episode of the Scott and Holman podcast. We appreciate you guys listening so much, especially this time of year when things are starting to slow down, but there's still a lot of really exciting things going on with Cougar sports and college sports just kind of in general. So we appreciate you guys listening so much. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media at SH Podcast. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. If you are more of an old school type of person, you can email us at shpodcast@gmail.com. I'm not that old, but it does feel weird to say you can reach out to us old school style via email. That still feels wrong.
The electronic mail.
Yeah, like that feels wrong because even I do remember writing letters to athletes when I was a kid. So, but if you do have any feedback, you can find us at shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want us to really, truly pay attention to what you say about us, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/shpodcast. For all of those, podcast is PAWDCAST. For those of you who it's your first time listening. But Sam, I think I covered it all. So what do we always say here, brother?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs. Let's go.